Welcome to Messy Parenting, a Catholic conversation on marriage and family. I'm Mike Hernon.
I'm Alicia Hernon.
And we've been married for 21 years. And not only do we not claim to be experts, we say there's danger and risks involved in parenting these days. But
you should do it anyway.
That's right. But it's worth it. And
it's worth it.
Our whole point of the podcast is to hopefully encourage more intentional parenting.
And share our experiences.
From our ups and our downs. We've got 10 children, and we've seen quite a bit in the diversity of our family.
Yep.
But as we come to the end of a year, calendar year at least, there's a idea of resolutions and thinking forward about kind of goals and thinking about the new year. And we were encouraged by some wonderful people to do a podcast on an idea called the family board meeting.
That's right. So as we get ready to do this, why don't you say a prayer and we'll get started.
Okay. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord Jesus Christ, we invite you into our time right now to be with us, to bless us. May the words of our mouth, the meditations of our heart be pleasing in your sight, and may all that we do advance your kingdom and bring you glory. Bless our families, those that we love and care for. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
The Son, Holy Spirit, amen. So this idea of a family board meeting.
That's right. And we have to admit that this, actually that phrase, I think that phrase comes from my brother Paul and his wife Maura.
Yeah, and I don't know if they created it or if they heard it from Michael Hyatt or Patrick Lencioni, or I don't know if they started it themselves.
I think that Paul started that part himself.
Yeah, he calls it the
family board meeting.
All right.
And basically, it's about being an intentional parent and having a intentional family, and not just letting things happen,
but
really
having goals
plan.
And plans for your family, for your life, together as a couple, as a board, if you will, of your own domestic corporation.
Yeah, if you think of your family as your own little business, and there is two board members who are co-partners or
right.
equals on this board, and just like any corporation sits down once a year and says, okay, how did we do this past year? What are we're going to do this next year, and what are our plans for the future?
Right.
How do we see this? Where are we going? Where's our big picture? And then where are the steps that we're going to take to get there? And
right.
it's really important, I think, to not let ourselves just be washed around from soccer practice to swimming practice to plays to potty training to teaching kids how to drive, and just never accomplish anything with our children that we actually want to accomplish to build this beautiful Catholic family.
Our lives as parents, we have 10 kids, but whether you have one child or 3 children or 10 or more, your life is full of chaos, is full of disorder. There's always seems to be a fire burning somewhere, some urgent thing that needs your attention immediately. And I remember, back from the early days at, in working, we would do a lot of Stephen Covey or, the planner, Franklin Planner stuff, where it just, you try to figure out how to organize yourself. And, the mantra, and I can't remember who said it, but failing to plan is planning for failure,
Right.
And if we don't have a plan of where we're going as a family, not that you have to have a strategic plan and all these different, tactical, operational things, but there is some great wisdom that can be gained from what happens at corporations that are very successful, that do well. Don't we want to be successful parents? And there might be some wisdom from that.
And I want to give this caveat, like so many of our podcasts. We can give you guys this wisdom because
yes, this is not from our own personal experience.
Because at least probably half or more of the goals that we make, sometimes we don't accomplish.
That's right.
And don't get started on, or for this reason or another. And it's not like we set out these great things and then accomplish everything on our list and then we move on to the next thing.
Check.
Because you know what?
All
Life
done.
happens. Life happens when
and
you have
messy,
kids.
Right?
It's
messy,
messy
parenting here.
It's very messy. And we need to be okay with that. We as a family And as Catholic families in general, we need to be okay with that. But you can't say, oh, I'll never accomplish this goal, so we're not going to plan anything anyway.
Right.
That is also not a good idea, because this time that you're going to have with your spouse in planning out your family, and planning, not family planning, but
just to be clear here,
but in getting some goals down on paper, that's a time for you not to be like the most awesome Catholic couple in the world, but it's for you to be on the same page.
Right.
It's for you to be unified going forward. Even if you don't wind up accomplishing your goals, for whether it's for your children's education or for getting out of debt or for a vacation or whatever, at the very least, actually, I shouldn't say at the very least. I should say really the home point is that you can at least be heading in the same direction.
That's right.
Like my sister Maria was telling me, her and her husband have this board meeting every year, and she said the one thing that some of her friends have commented to her is that when they ask her husband Jake about her son Levi's education, and then they ask Maria about it, they both give the same answer.
Right.
Because they have been intentional in saying this year, this is our goal for our son.
Right, and this is the approach. These are the things we value. This is where we're going. In general, doesn't mean we're going to be perfect in the execution or getting it all done or what have you.
Right, but at least you're on the same page in regards to your family, your parenting, your financial goals, things like that.
Right.
And it's very, very important for your unity as a couple to do that. And I think that is what you should keep in mind for this board meeting. It's not necessarily it's not the same as a business, obviously.
right, and it shouldn't be, and we shouldn't expect it to. But also, too, I think the reality is that in life we are going to fail. Failure is what happens. Failure is part of succeeding, because in business, it's the reality of that every whether it's in sales, I'm thinking of, is every no statistically means you're closer to a yes. Yeah. And those who are super successful, the entrepreneurs, often have this mantra of fail fast, because they believe that we're all going to fail, but the quicker and the sooner you fail, the sooner you're going to succeed. And so I think that we can't simply just give up and say we're not going to plan any goals.
We're not going to plan any goals because we're not going to accomplish them anyway. Because I know that there's people out there that are saying that
definitely.
Right now.
Like, I don't believe in like New Year's resolutions. I don't believe in, BS, man. We gotta get off our tail, and we can't settle for mediocrity. That's what there are two extremes. There are people who don't bother because they're like, it's not worth it. Our life is too chaotic. We can't do this. And the other is they are super hyper OCD or whatever, that they end up getting so focused on those things, where the primary goal, just to kind of reinforce that, the primary goal is that you're on the same page, that you're unified. Right. And so all these goals are important, but the first and primary goal of everything you really should be doing as a married couple is building the unity, because your unity is what's going to give strength for your family. So, I think it should be the built-in necessary requirement that if you want to go on a family board meeting, you understand that the clear goal is unity. And with that, building on that, you're going to now build in some more intentionality to your overall parenting. And because it really is hard. Like the kids, sometimes our teenagers, I don't know if they do it intentionally. Sometimes they do. But they go to
us?
No. That they think they do intentionally. But the idea that they'll go to you and ask one thing, they may not get the right answer, or you're like, come back to me later, and they come to me and I'll say a different story. I'm like, oh, Mom already said I could do it, or whatever. And but when
it's the oldest trick in the teenage book.
But we fall for it. Oh! But the idea that if we have some of the big things that we're united on, we've already talked about it. And there's a natural unity that comes from that kind of intentional.
And then I have to say that sometimes kind of we do the opposite. Like they come to me and then I say, and then I deflect, because I'm like, we haven't talked about this.
Buck.
So I say, go talk to your father. And then they go to Mike, and Mike goes, go talk to Mom. And they're like, who do I talk to?
Give me a
Who's
lifeline.
driving this flying umbrella?
Yeah. Anyway, so the idea of doing a family board meeting,
Right. So let's talk about some of the practicalities
let's-
that had. What does that mean, and what does it look like?
Yeah, so we've done this, but not in the. And so I just want to really give great shout out to Maura and Jake and Maria and obviously
Not
Paul,
in that order.
Not in that order. Paul and Maura and
Doman.
Jake and Maria Schwiniger really have done this, and we haven't done this in this formal way. We've done goal setting, we've done different things for our
Right.
family, elements of this, but they've done it really on steroids, and I really God bless them for it. And I think we're going to try it this year the way that
Yeah.
they've laid it out. I think it's a really
Well,
great
we're kind of fortunate
proposal.
because our anniversary. First time I've ever said I'm fortunate our anniversary is in January. It's January 8th. Sometime we're going to do a podcast about our wedding.
Took her
It was
20 years to get to the point where she thought it was fortunate.
Okay, side note, our wedding was a total disaster, but because it was in January. But putting that aside,
Winter, blizzard.
having a anniversary at the beginning of the year means that very often if we go away or if we go out to dinner or whatever, we wind up talking about our year
Right.
and like, what are we going to do? So we haven't called it a board meeting, but that's kind of when we do our planning.
Yeah, or over the Christmas holidays because things
Right.
usually slow down a little bit. I'm usually not at work. We're taking some time. We're reflecting back and looking forward.
Right.
And it's in the air we breathe, I think, around that time. So what they propose and what we've done on some modest level is that you go away. That you, if at all possible, you get out and away from the kids, unless they're nursing infants, maybe. But you get away, and that it's the two of you, kind of like a corporate retreat.
Right.
If you can go away to a nice place, go for it, enjoy
Yeah.
it. And the first thing that you're doing is kind of building up each other, building up your unity.
And I just want to talk for one quick second about the importance of going away.
Yes.
Because I think if you don't go away, first of all, a couple hours dinner is really not enough to do everything, especially if you have a big family. It's not enough to do everything that we're going to be talking about. You really need, even if it's just from morning till night, even if it's not sleeping over, but if you just like get out of the house, because you have to do something where you can be alone together and unified and not distracted
That's right.
by what's around you. And so that's why the idea of like going to someplace nice, like that's why corporations do that. It's not just because they just want to just spend extra money, but when people are relaxed and having a good time and physically relaxed, it's easier to open up. It's easier to get those creative juices flowing. And for a couple, it's easier to remember this is what it's all about.
That's right. This is the foundation.
This marriage, me being your wife, me being your husband, this is what it's all about. It's not about the craziness of the kids in the
Life.
diapers and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think being
Renewing
renewing that and being reminded of that exactly is really the foundation of what needs to happen for this board meeting.
And so starting the first step in
Yeah.
the family board meeting is really renewing and refreshing the foundation of everything, is that unity. And you really spend time investing in each other. And I think it was Maria that talked about affirming each other.
Right.
So starting with that, and this is true actually in corporate settings. Oftentimes there might be team building exercises to really get you both more comfortable. Not that you aren't comfortable with each other, but it's re-engaging. Rejuvenating, your marriage. So affirming each other.
And I think like Maria actually said that they talk to their spouse about like the past year specifically, not just
affirming what they did.
Exactly. Not just like, I love you as a person, but really saying
in generic ways, not being very specific.
But being very specific and saying, you know what, in this past year, I have seen you ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Or beepy-da-boppity-boop. Whichever.
Usually I say blah, blah, blah. But anyway, trying new dots. But especially if you do this every year and you have your goals written out, you can be really affirming to your spouse and saying, you know what? I know this was your goal, and I am so proud of you that you did this. You lost 10 pounds. You were able to save for this. You did a 5K or whatever. But being affirming about, or even just in your person, I've seen you grow in this way, in patience or in teaching the kids or whatever.
I'm
this
feeling
past
affirmed
year.
already. This is great.
I'm just making this stuff up, Mike. I'm not really.
Oh, shoot.
Mike really didn't do any of these things.
They thought you
He
were.
didn't run a 5K or lose 10 pounds.
What? Come on. They didn't know that. It's all radio podcast world. All right. So the first number is really to.
Actually, we have 3 A's here. We have alone, away, and affirming.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's the step number one is to go away and build that first. The second is vision cast, at least as we would define it, right? And so again, what does that mean? What do we want to be as a family? So just not thinking too specific, but like, where are we going? What do we want to be in 5, 10, 20 years from now?
What kind of family do we want to have?
Right. What really matters to us? What are the things that really values? I think it was Covey, but talking about what are the big rocks? What are the big things in your marriage, your family, that you want to say, this is what I want us to be known for? They'd often talk about the idea of, on a tombstone, what do you want to be written as your epitaph? What do you want your eulogy? What is the way they say it in
eulogy?
No, in
you Googleize?
You Googleizer. Anyway, but what's your googly or eulogy?
We're having all of these pop culture references. I hope people understand what we're talking about.
No, they have no idea. Anyway, but really just thinking big with that. And
what it makes me think of is those conversations that we had before we got married.
Yeah.
When we were trying to figure out, I mean, we had those conversations. I hope that other dating and engaged couples do, but you have those conversations about what kind of family do we want to have, and what is your vision for family life? Because you have to start with those big things to decide, is this even the person I want to get married to?
Right. Like, what do we just did a podcast on music. Music was very important to you and is important in our family life. I'd say that's definitely a value we hold, especially. I'm very proud of my Irish heritage, and that's something very important to us. Mm-hmm. We value our families and the time that we spend with extended family and travel, exposing our kids to that sort of thing. They're all some of those bigger things, but also, what do we want our kids to have in 5, 10 years? Because sometimes do
you say we want to move out to the country? Do we want to have a farm? We want to move to the city.
Right.
We want to spend a
we
year in Europe.
Travel to
whatever.
Europe. Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
For you as a family.
So does that make sense? So thinking really kind of very long term, and sometimes it's okay to dream. We want to one day get a lake house. You know what?
Yep, that is something.
Dreaming pretty big. That's not something you're going to do in the next year, probably.
We're thinking about that's something that, like, for our grandchildren, that's something that we want to do down the road, way down the road.
Right. So that's kind of casting the bigger vision, and then flowing from that is setting goals. But I guess just defining one of the things that a consultant that I work with really gave me this idea, and I really incorporate it into the work that I do at the university, is this threefold kind of process where you dream big, you plan simple, and you act now. Really great credit to Tom Suddes, who really, and it's just really helped form a lot for me. It's just very simple, dream big. So just don't be mediocre. Don't just be blah. Mm-hmm. Really dream big. But then make your plan, which is the next part for us in the board meeting. Plan very simple, and thirdly, act now. But again, just the dreaming, the big is also really defining why things matter. And this kind of slides in a little bit more into the goals. Maybe I'll save it for the next segment.
Okay.
Going a little bit more.
We are now at the next segment.
All right. So again, we've got the relax and invest in your relationship. Then we have the vision casting. And then third, we have the goals. Okay. And I think it's important.
Because I don't know what he's going to say. So,
all right, so
just go ahead and say it.
All right, so I think it's important when you set up a goal that you define why it's important to you, why that goal matters.
Yeah.
And so again, if you have a
it's connecting the goal to the vision.
Right. So your mission. I mean, if you think of it, mission, vision, and your goals should all flow. Your mission as a Catholic family, as a Christian, it needs to line up. Your vision, where do you want to be in 10, 15, 20 years from now as a family?
Right.
And then the third layer is the goals. What are we going to actually accomplish in this year?
Right.
And if you don't know why you're going to do something, why do you want to do a 5K? Because if you don't have the why defined, everything else will crowd it out.
Like, I will be honest, right now, I do not see running a 5K as part of my goals.
It's not a priority
because
for you.
It is not connecting to our greater vision. I really don't care about that. Running, this is my saying, I only run in emergencies. Like, that's it. If you see me running, it's an emergency.
That's right.
Or I'm playing football at Thanksgiving once a year, and then I'm like sore for 3 days afterwards.
That's right.
But
I'm chasing you around the house.
Which I obviously don't do very well. We have 10 children. Anyway, so the goal needs to be connected to the vision. So that's why, like, if Mike had even said, hey, I want to make one of our goals one of our goals is a couple running a 5K. I'd be like, well, how does that connect to our vision?
Right.
It
Challenge
doesn't
it.
really connect to our vision. And so so that's why the vision is first and then the goals are next, because
Right.
you always need to keep in mind, like
And-
you just
and
said,
that-
why are you doing it?
Right, and so some of the goals might be our vision is that we're going to be an educated family.
Right.
You know, that we're going to be well cultured. And so one of the goals might be, you know what, I want to get our kids to a couple of musicals this year.
Right.
Or I really want to make sure that in addition to
Now that I would support.
right, or educated wise, you know, in addition to what their normal schoolwork is, we want to create a summer our own book list, you know, for over the summer reading, and we create some little plan where we give them prizes or whatever it might be.
Right.
But you think of what that goal is, and if it doesn't connect back up to your mission of who you are and your vision of where you're going, it's probably not going to be as strong. But again, you have to even define it even more. It's like, what would happen if you didn't do this?
Yeah.
And if it's like actually nothing, it's no big deal.
Right.
Then is it really a goal?
Yeah.
Because is it worth it? Because when you're establishing something as a goal, you're basically saying, I want to say no to other things in order to accomplish
That
this.
is what you got to remember. And that's why the goals are important, because there's lots of good things that come down the pike in our life. There's lots of great, maybe stuff going on at your parish or stuff going on at your school. And you're like, oh, I'd like to get involved in that. But you know what? We only have so much time. We only have so much energy.
Right.
And that's why it's important that we have set goals like this, so we can look and say, hey, when these things come, is that helping me accomplish my goal?
Right.
And if it's not, and you want to do it,
That's okay as long as it doesn't compete, you know, at
exactly.
the end of the day.
And I think that might be a time to like reevaluate, which
yeah.
of course you can do.
And you do things outside of your goals all the time. That's not a problem. But it's a
Right.
question of when things start to intrude, you know, again, you know, the quadrants, right? You know, from Franklin Planner and Stephen Covey, you know, the quadrants. I think it was just Franklin Planner. I can't remember. But
It's in the 7 Habits book.
does he have? Yeah, that's right. He does.
Yep.
Because I would blur my stuff with those two guys. But the idea that, you know, the important and the urgent, you know, on a quadrant, and when you have important urgent things, well, obviously you do that. But then what happens is that the things that are not urgent but that are important to you often get neglected, and then
That's
the
right.
urgent but unimportant steal away your time.
Right.
And not that you I mean, our purpose, our mission is to have children, right? As a married couple, is to raise and form our children. So if they're waking up in the middle of the night, that's an urgent and important thing. Okay, my children are my priority,
Right.
and if there's an issue there, but if my child wants to be in 5 activities after school and I'm going to be driving all over Kingdom Come in order to get them to all their activities, and it's undermining, you know, some other greater goal for our family, I'd be like, wait a second. That
What am I
doesn't make
doing?
any sense here. That might be urgent to this child, but it may not work for us. Or
And we actually talk about that in another podcast, in the Living a Balanced Life podcast.
there you go. That's right.
Talk about that more in depth. But let's talk about like the different areas that
Yes,
are
thank
covered
you.
at the board meeting, which are
Yes.
really, really important, I think. So as far as like setting goals, so looking at different areas of your life. And if you like to take notes or something, you might want to write
Well,
these
and
down.
we'll link to this too. So if you want to go to
We will link-
messyparenting.org,
Right.
We'll put it in our show notes. The link to the whole blog post that
Jake Schweniger did, yeah. From
did
Real
on this.
Honest Living, there's a blog post there. And this is shamelessly plagiarized directly from his
No,
blog
we're citing
post.
him. We're not plagiarizing if we cite
That's
him.
right, that's true. We're lifting it from there.
Right.
So
There's
these
an acronym
different
CASE: copy and steal everything. That's what I live by, just in case.
So the different areas that to look at for yourselves individually, for yourself as a couple, and for your family is the area of your spiritual growth, physical. So obviously, you know, losing weight, exercising,
Health,
taking
medical
care of
stuff.
yourself, health, medical things like that. Relationships. Who are the relationships that you want to invest in? Maybe there's a certain couple that you really, really like and you always receive life in getting in through that relationship, but you never make time for them for whatever reason.
You're both busy and what have you, but
You know what? Maybe that's going to be a goal that year, to invest in that relationship. Maybe it's family relationships.
extended
One of
family
you
that
looks and says, you know what? I really would like to grow a relationship with my dad this year.
That's right.
Because for whatever reason, I feel God's calling me to this. Maybe they're in ill health or whatever. Well, that would be a goal in relationships. That's really, really important, that area of relationships. Maybe there's a whole other family that you're like, we want to get to know our kids, to get get together. Then there's financial, which is obviously a huge one. You take my brother Paul says that they take actually an Excel spreadsheet with their budget from their entire year. And they look at that, which actually we could do that too.
Yeah.
And they look at every month and say...
Every month?
No. They look at every month and say, okay, this is how we did. This is the things that we can cut. Things we can cut back on. These are things that, we want to put more money into, whatever. And that a lot of times, I think talking about the finances, that's the reason that you need that relax and invest
before you talk about that stuff.
Because that can be a really hard conversation.
That's right.
And I don't know any couple that does not find that to be a really difficult conversation, because how we spend our money is a reflection of our values.
That's
and it's
right.
very easy to get defensive about that when you are comparing notes. Right. And I think it's really good to be unified and just seeking understanding. And also, it's a great time for looking at the past, but it's a great time to plan for the future. We have made a number of financial goals that we have actually accomplished, and it's so satisfying.
Now, not that we are completely debt-free, but we had a time where we were debt-free because of the Dave Ramsey.
Before we bought this new house.
The new house, that's right. Now we're back into debt again. But it was great, following Dave Ramsey's kind of pattern in becoming debt-free. That was a huge goal. But if we didn't have the unity on that, if we didn't have a commitment, we actually even got some of our older kids to understand where we were at. That's a big deal, it was awesome. It was great to be able to accomplish that.
That year or two we were debt free. It was great.
Shut up.
Okay, so then, so financial, and I just want to say those financial goals for the future is really important to be on the same page. It really is. And then there's
and they also too often cite in statistics that that finances is one of the prime reasons for divorce.
That's right.
I mean, there's other things too. I'm blanking.
No,
on
but it is definitely it's a huge area.
So don't overlook that, and and each of us comes with our own baggage, meaning we were all trained differently how to deal with money, how to look at money, how we treat money, how we spend, how we save, how we're in a scarcity, we spend nothing, we are extravagant. All those things really do play into values.
And it's good to lay it out on the table, because
and to be vulnerable and honest with each other.
How many times do you hear about like a spouse dying, a husband dying, and the wife doesn't know anything about their finances? They don't know anything about their retirement, about their insurance, about anything.
Right, and also
it's good to be together and honest and accountable to each other.
Right.
To say, look, these are all of our accounts. And for a husband, a lot of times, maybe if they're whoever's taking care of the finances, sometimes it's the husband, sometimes not, but whoever's doing that, it is an exercise in honesty and vulnerability to lay it all out there.
That's right.
This is where we're at.
There's admissions of, shoot, I was kind of tasked with this job and I didn't complete it.
I didn't follow up.
I didn't follow up. I didn't keep us on track. But the reality is, it's not one person's job in the marriage. It's both of them. And again, I not to dwell just for a second more. The other part is that if you have multiple accounts, and are you hiding? Kind of going deeper. Are you hiding something from your spouse? Are we really being transparent and being okay, being vulnerable enough to say, yeah, you know what, I probably overspent. I broke. Kind of our plan, or didn't follow through.
Right.
Just making an honest assessment of it, being comfortable with that, being
right.
vulnerable. But then, again, starting again with a more unified goal. So that it's not, I have my goal and you have yours, and this is your money, this is my money. No, it's our money. Yeah, you might use accounts to be more effective and all of that, but ultimately it is not an individual's money. It's the couple's
And I think
decision.
That's especially true when you have two couples, where
working.
both... Right. Where both spouses
income
are income earners and contributing, it can be very tempting, I'm sure, to be like, my money, your money, and that's...
Or even worse, if there is only one person potentially working who thinks it's all their money because they earned it, and they're doling it out as treats for somebody else. Oh my gosh. So again, thinking of a husband and a spouse, it's like, Alicia, you as the CEO of our domestic church here, you do a hell of a lot more in our taking care of our home and our children, and you earn every penny that I make.
But I think you're the CEO too. Don't make me the CEO. I'm not going to be the CEO by myself.
All right. Well, maybe I'm like the king of the house, But you're like the prime minister, who everyone knows you're really interested. Anyway.
No, we are equal
That's
in this.
right. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, but the other areas to discuss is education or personal growth.
I would say, well, it's education. I mean, for some couples, it may be your own personal education, like depending on if you're still in school or,
Right.
whatever, someone wants to get a degree. But as you have more and more kids, it's really talking about your kids' education.
where they're at. And this would go for both
Exactly.
religious education as well as just academic intellectual development.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, gosh, we talked in another podcast about education decision. It's
That's
a
right.
hard decision.
But it's our job. It's our obligation.
Right. And sometimes you just really need to sit down, the two of you, and be like, okay, how is so-and-so doing? Okay, this is what we wanted. This is our goal for them. Maybe it's beefing up their reading. Maybe it's increasing their math. Maybe it's, hey, maybe they're really having a hard time socially. We're going to change schools or whatever. But looking at your kids and their education and what are your goals for your children. And sometimes not all kids need goals. Like we have some kids who are like doing great. I'm like, I don't know, just
Do what you're
encourage them,
doing.
keep doing what you're
Thumbs
doing.
up.
Kid.
Here you go.
You're doing great. So it's nice to have kids like that. They make your life a lot easier. But some kids really struggle. I mean, we have some kids who have, some special educational needs, and that's good to look at. And so we can be unified, because then that kind of goes into the financial too.
Right.
Because if
Yeah.
we're going to pay for an extra reading tutor or something like that, we need to be on the same page with that. So Mike is not being like, wait a minute, why are we paying for this? Who
That's
is
right.
this person?
And those decisions really, because we create an ideal month for us, an ideal budget that looks at, the year, I guess, essentially, but what's, Catholic school tuition, what's the music tutors, what, all those things that are
Right.
going into that.
Exactly. Music education. Sure.
All those things. And, I just think it would be good for you to look at your own growth too. I mean, of course, we're looking at our kids and their educational needs, but Stephen Covey talks about sharpening the saw. The idea that your body, mind, and spirit. We talked about the spiritual goal. We talked about a physical goal, but and this is something that I work at a university, and it's are we intellectually engaging ourselves? Is there something you want to do, whether it be reading, whether it be taking a class or going to some lectures or whatever it might be, but just thinking, or just, hey, you know what? I want to read the newspaper once a week. I don't know what it is, but it's staying in connected in that way. The other is looking at your, last two are looking at your career and just saying, where do you want to be? Just personally, because if a career decision that I made or Alicia made, that we want to look for something, it's going to be something we make together. So let's look at do we like where we're at right now? Do we want to make changes? Are we looking at improvements, whether enhancing how we're doing our current job, or are we looking for something different?
And also, I think it's important, especially if you have a one income earner, like if dad is the only one working, then if one of the career goals would be, you know what? I'm going to really work to get this promotion this year. And this means I'm going to have to put in extra hours. And I'm going to have to do some more traveling. Are you okay with that? And so the two of you can be on the same page.
Whether it's yes or no,
Exactly, whether it's yes or no. And maybe the decision is made, you know what, this isn't the time to do that right now. Or maybe the decision is made, yeah, it is. We want to go for it. We're going to invest and work 60 hours weeks. We're going to work 80-hour weeks or whatever it takes for this year. And we're going to be on the same page with that. Because it's more important than you are unified than it is that you have more time with the kids or whatever, because you have to be on the same page and recognizing this is for the good of the family. Where I think families break down is when you have one person, when this conversation is never had, and you have one person who's like, I'm going to really go for it at work, and meanwhile the wife is left in the dust with all the kids and being like, wait a minute, what just happened here? You're never home.
Right.
As opposed to, you know what, honey, I know you're never here, but I know that you are doing this, so I have the privilege of staying home. And so you're going to go to work and you're going to kill yourself so I can stay here and take care of our kids, and we're both going to make that sacrifice. Right. And so, it's just like it's not even a difference in logistics, it's a difference in attitude and a difference in unity. So that's why it's really, really important to have those conversations. Maybe, like right now, I'm actually working almost pretty much full time. And that was a decision that we made.
That was a big change for 20 years.
Exactly. And that was something, again, that that we decided that I would do. So that would be a conversation, that we're unified on and going forward for right now.
And kind of just, again, with all of these areas, but there are going to be certain parts that are really personal goals too for an individual. And one spouse might say they really want to do the 5K, or they really want to do X. And the idea that we're unified behind them, supporting them, kind of like we're talking about the career, that we're united in that decision, because they're going to need support. They're going to need encouragement. They're going to also need accountability. How are you doing with that?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into that in the next section, I guess. But the idea that, the mutual decision, mutual responsibility. We often talked about that in our early days of marriage, because I'd be like, oh, well, I didn't make that decision, or we kind of blame the other. And the whole point of this meeting is so that you can say together, we're united on this, and that will speak volumes to your kids, the world, and it will make you so much more. Just better people.
I
better,
really
more
think
satisfied.
for the young couples, we honestly said that all the time: mutual decision, mutual responsibility. Because if you make a decision together,
There's no going backwards and
there's
blaming
no
somebody
going
else.
back, and you can't blame the other person if stuff goes south.
Right. So you're like,
That's
I told
not
you it was
fair.
going to go wrong. No.
That's not fair.
That's BS, man. You can't do that. That's wrong.
Exactly. That's the second time you said BS in this podcast.
I know. Shoot. Sorry. I should put an explicit warning on this, I guess. So the other area is vacations, which I thought was really cool. I mean, although we do plan our vacation out, but I think I heard from Maura that Paul and Maura actually look at all his vacation days.
Right.
And I mean, maybe
Which
they don't.
is very important. I mean,
Yeah.
at the beginning of our marriage, Mike had 2 weeks vacation, and every single day had to be very,
Yes,
very carefully
very-
planned out and very carefully used.
Now that I have more vacation days, we don't use them all, which I probably should. That's probably wrong. Right?
Yeah, probably.
But the idea of even planning in some 4-day weekends or other things that
Right.
might come in, that's just like little things that we might want to plan out, and then we can build around it. And with older kids, they've got work, and so the longer we can plan out things, the
Yeah.
better it is for everybody.
Right.
So
and also just
life gets
deciding
busy.
together, do we want to spend vacation by ourselves? Do we want to have go with some friends? Do we want to go with family?
That's right.
But just having that time to talk about those vacations. Can you go back?
I'm sorry.
You know what? I just want to say real quick that when we first started doing this list, I thought I was going to list them first, but then I started talking about them. So we kind of skipped over the spiritual goals.
Okay,
We just kind of
go.
said it. So let's
we
just
were
say
just
that.
listing it. Yeah, then we went into some of them. Right.
Yeah.
So when we think about the spiritual goal,
This is the first goal that I said, but I just kind of didn't really
List it.
go into it very much. But okay, so spiritual goals can be, each of you looking at the time that you have for prayer and saying, is this what God is calling me to right now? And do I need to build in more time for prayer? Do I need to go on a retreat? Do I want to make it a goal to go on a retreat this year? And if so, well, then go find the retreat time, put it on the calendar. The spouse has 3 months notice or however months notice to start planning around that and making that happen.
Because I want to say this, that it's really important for me that my wife has got her spiritual priorities set. And so me watching the kids for the weekend so she can go on a retreat is a joy and an honor for me to be able to do that. And I think we as spouses need to look at each other and say, your spiritual life is so important. Again, not that it's that big of a deal at the end of the day, but if you've got a lot of little kids hanging all over your wife, guys, say to your wife, make it a Christmas present maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a retreat weekend away that you're just going to be by yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to go and be with a woman's retreat or whatever it is, or a silent retreat or whatever's good for her,
Right.
Him or her, reality. Because the other part is that it is hard now for men sometimes to get away. Because at least for me,
It's hard for everybody to get away.
it is. Well,
Gosh.
I travel for my work.
Yeah.
So it's harder in my mind sometimes because I
Yeah.
already travel for work. And then to add in one more time where I'm away from the family. You're, up until just recently, you were a stay-at-home mom. And so you were around the kids all the time. And so it was necessary for you to get away. I do get away, but it's important for me to make time for the retreat. And I've always valued how much you support me in that and make
I think
that decision.
I think it's a good time, too, to look at your kids' spiritual life and say, hey, do we need to build in more family prayer?
That's
What will
right.
be our goals for family prayer this year? whatever, putting that in there.
Right. What do you
as
do? You want to
well.
do a new type of prayer? Do you want to
Right.
introduce the family rosary? Have you done the liturgy of the hours? Do
Right.
you want to do something during the liturgical seasons, Lent and
Right.
Advent, or whatever you might want to do? Just think about it. Now,
And
sorry, go
again,
ahead.
put down these goals and write them down
So that's
so you can keep referring to them and start, putting them into your daily plan.
so. I anything else on this list?
No, I
Okay.
think that's it.
So I think I just want to remind you about goals. The things that I think are important, or we think are important, is first defining the why that goal matters. Two, we think it's very, very important to write it down. When you write something down, you're making a commitment to it. You're making more of a kind of a proclamation. We're going to do this.
Right.
And we know some families that, and we don't do this, but I think it's a great idea. They actually post it. If they have some of their big things, they put it right in their room. That they can see it and they can know that they're following up with it. But also by writing it down, you kind of have a history.
See, that's one thing. Is I'm like,
We haven't
I
done-
wish that we had that, because I would.
We did that with we did our budgets in print, but we
I
didn't
should go
do.
look on our computers, because I might have a file somewhere. But it would be really cool to have a document of been like, 5 years ago, these were our goals. And look what we've accomplished. It would just be, maybe sometimes it would be depressing and be like, oh yeah, we never did that or whatever. But I think sometimes it would be really great just to see what we've accomplished.
But
I want to start doing that now.
And I think that people in general overestimate, this is something I've heard, people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they can
Yeah.
accomplish in 10 years.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So,
that's
but
very
when you
good.
look at it and say, okay, well, maybe we didn't make this goal. Maybe it shouldn't have been a goal in the first place.
Yeah.
And but the first time, if you've never done this before, you're gonna screw up. It's okay. Deal with it. Move on. You're a mess. Okay. No, but the idea that you didn't get it right the first time, no big deal. And you look back at it like, was it really, in a year from now, when you go back and look at that goal, was that really a good goal for me to choose?
Right.
Was I just simply lazy and didn't get it done?
And I think that also partly has to do with just your age and how long you've been married and how well you know yourself. Like, I think that we make better goals now after being married for 20 years, just
That's
because
right.
we kind of know ourselves a little better,
That's right.
and we know, what's realistic and all of
What's
that.
going to stretch us, but
Right.
still be possible?
Right. But the thing is that if you never make any goals, you're never going to know that.
Right.
So I
you'll
think
always
that
hit that
it's-
target. If you aim for nothing, you'll always hit it. You'll get nothing.
Exactly.
So and so if you define the why, if you write it down, you make a or kind of a history for yourself, and you kind of give you a tabs to look on it.
And that leads into our last section, which is just review and readjust.
Right.
Because when you have it written down, then you can, sometime over the summer be like, okay, hey, do we need to readjust this goal? Should we
Yeah.
readjust it? Let's review this. Or, hey, look, we've already accomplished such and such, whatever.
That's right.
So I think that that's another good reason to write things down so you can readjust them and, review as needed.
One of the things that I always think is important as we kind of get to the wrap up of this is the ancient saying of Yoda. Do or do not do. There is no try.
See, we're getting geared up for Star Wars.
Star
on
Wars
Thursday.
this week, yeah, baby. But just because we're going to the opening night of Star Wars is not the only reason why I'm quoting Yoda. But I mean, really,
We honestly do say that all the time to the
yeah,
kids.
I do. Do or do not do. There is no try. There is no try. So don't try to do something. If you're going to do a goal, just say, "Gosh darn it, I'm going to do it."
That's right.
And notice I use "gosh." Is that better?
Good
Language?
job.
Okay. But set yourself up for success. And I would recommend personally to not start off with a list of anything more. Keep your goals very simple, very discreet, and
Something you can start right away.
you can start right away, because again, if we just say that our life is about practicing for heaven, that we're in process, we're training for heaven, so there is no trying. I think Matthew Kelly said something about that at one point. That don't try to do it, just train. Reality that we're still learning, and just take that as a measure that, hey, yeah, I might fail, but this is part of the training process.
Right.
And I'm going to learn how to do it better next time.
Right.
And I can readjust halfway into the year, next month if need be. But
Right.
do it together and make a plan,
Right.
set some goals, make a plan of how to make it happen, and stick to it. Push yourself.
Right.
Stretch.
And
if you don't
encourage each
accomplish it,
other.
And then encourage each other, keep each other accountable. So again, that Sudis, dream big, plan simple, and act now.
Yep.
So just act now. What can you implement right away? So anything else on the topic?
Nope.
All right. So one of the things that this is how we've approached this, and what we've taken from the wisdom from others. We've obviously probably failed in many of our attempts in the past, but how do you do it, or how would you do it? What's the perfect way to accomplish goals? What really helps you? I'd love to hear from you. If you want to comment on the messyparenting.org, or send us an
Facebook
email, or on the Facebook page if you want to comment there, just to give us ideas.
We'll have show notes too to the
I'll link to
Real
both
Honest Living.
Real Honest Living. I'll do some Patrick Lencioni and
some
Michael
Michael Hyatt
Hyatt
stuff,
and some Stephen Covey stuff, and just to kind of give you some other things to look at.
Give you some inspiration.
Yeah, because this is the time of year. We're in Advent. We're heading into Christmas. We're going into a new year. This is a perfect time for you to think about, what does God want for you in the 2016?
It's a great time to make goals, because this is the year of mercy.
Amen.
So God is going to have mercy on you, even if you don't make up your goals. So there you go.
There you go. All right. That's all we got. So until next time, actually, make sure you share us on Facebook. We'd really appreciate that, because it's really fun to see all the different people that are getting the podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please share it and spread it around, and send us in any of your comments, thoughts, or suggestions. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.